And the next stop on the Purdue Redemption Tour is the Final Four.
More in motion, they get it to him. More in space, close to speed. A touchdown for Purdue. He's still going.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Wash Boilers. I'm Justin with Eich here. Today we're going to be going over our inaugural award season for the 2025-2026 Purdue basketball season. But first we're going to start with some just recent NCAA news. The first thing we want to get to is some tourney expansion that they've had recently. They've upped it from 68 to 76 teams. Ike, I don't know if you have any quick thoughts on this to start.
I mean, anything to get IU into the tournament, I guess. I mean, you look at a team like, I don't know. I just don't think that if you go 500 in your conference, if you're in the Power 5, that you should be able to get into the tournament unless you have a really good non-con. And a lot of these teams just don't. So I just think that it's not necessary.
I think that's a perfect point because that's exactly where I was going to go with this, where I have a reference of what the at-large play-in teams would be and then also the automatic qualifiers. But Arizona State would be in as a 13 seed this year. They went 7-11 in conference last year. Do we need teams like this in? I think it's getting to a point where it's interesting for a Purdue lens where we'll probably make the tournament now every year. There's really, unless a catastrophic event occurs, maybe Painter retires in 10 years and then we have somebody takes over that's not as good. It's pretty hard to imagine Purdue ever not making it. Michigan, always going to make it. Any of those big blue bloods like Kentucky, I think North Carolina, I know they've been on and off. You guys expect they're always going to make it now. And so for the automatic qualifier teams, I think I'm kind of okay with the 16 and 15 seeds. Everybody knows that they kind of make money the more games they play. So it's a little annoying, I guess, if you're Kennesaw State or Wright State, because you used to not have to play a play-in, but now you're going to have to do that to get destroyed by a 2 seed usually. But I don't know if you have any other thoughts about that before I move on to something else.
Yeah, I look at a team like Auburn, who ended up going and winning the NIT. I would almost prefer to be a team like them and end my season on a win and have positive momentum than to go to the first 12 or whatever the new first 4 is going to be called in Dayton and just lose immediately or win and then get blown out. So I just don't think that it was needed, and I'm interested to see if it actually, well, I guess it is going to go through, so I guess see how it goes in the first year.
Yeah, I definitely wonder how the NIT is going to be affected.
One of the other new changes that the NCAA pushed through is the new 5-and-5 rule. And I wanted to go over it and see how it affected Purdue for next season and what that's going to look like for us. So just wanted to start with kind of the overview of what the rule is going to be. So first of all players receive 5 seasons of eligibility in 5 years. So you can play 5 seasons in a 5-year window. That eligibility begins the academic year after the player graduates from high school or when they turn 19, whichever happens first. That's to try to get rid of the 30-year-olds playing college basketball. So that makes sense, and I like that. Some key takeaways right away. It eliminates traditional redshirt years. So even if you redshirt your first year, you don't get 6 years then in total to play 5 years. You only get the same 5 years. Rare exceptions would be made for medical redshirts and a few other reasons why people would need an extra year, but those are apparently going to be a lot more strict going forward. And this will not retroactively apply to players who completed their eligibility at the end of the 25-26 season. So Braden and Fletcher, sorry about that.
It's unfortunate, man. We were 1 year off.
I know. I feel like Fletcher would have come back. Maybe not sure. Braden, but I feel like Fletcher could have come back.
Braden would have destroyed the assist record again. He would have been untouchable at that point.
I mean, you look at it now, though, and with this new rule, it kind of is just untouchable. Because now anyone who breaks it, you can say, well, they had 5 years. So I feel unless they break it in 4 years and then go to the NBA or just leave college for whatever reason, then I feel like it's Braden's forever.
That's kind of the old man point of view. I can't believe we're already old enough to start doing this, but it's just going to be the new regular. It's just everybody gets 5 years. It's just that's the new, if this goes through, the new norm. And so I am happy that it's getting rid of those old players. If there's not really a reason you could be 25 and playing in the NCAA. That's awesome. I think that's a great addition. That's something we do not need to have in the NCAA. It's just, do we need guys playing a fifth season. I guess if we get to the point where everybody's doing it, it's not the same argument that you have 23-year-olds playing against 19-year-olds. It's just 23-year-olds playing against other 23-year-olds a lot of the time now. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no one wants to see me suit up
Yeah, I mean,
on an NCAA court
I still
after
got time.
July.
Yeah.
That is true. So kind of what this means for Purdue. So like I mentioned, Braden Fletcher, TKR, there was some talk early. I know some people were making videos about it. They're not coming back. Since they finished at the end of the 2026 season, they will not be the starters. And we can actually have conversations about who's going to be the starters in 2026 and not have it just end up being the same exact five as it was last year,
I would
somehow
take
with new
it.
rules. You know what? Maybe I probably would have too. Caden Pierce will probably still have that just 1 year remaining. So since he redshirted the 25-26 season, but he started in the 22-26 season, this next one's going to be his fifth year. So that's still going to be that 5-5 if that retroactively applies. This is still his fifth year, so that's going to be his last one. And that red shirt's not going to apply for a potential future fifth year in 6 years, just based on how it works right now. If this does go into effect this offseason, this one's kind of interesting. Luke Girdle, Jacob Weber, Rivers Knight, and Zenon Juan will have 5 years of eligibility. And given that this is going to eliminate redshirt rules, it's likely they're all going to get minutes right away. So I know it was widely speculated that Rivers Knight would redshirt this year. He would not under these new rules. So
That's
I think
actually a
when we,
really
yeah,
interesting. Like, I didn't even think about it from that perspective. Like, you're just gonna see guys who wouldn't normally play like get minutes. Like, because why not? I mean,
yeah,
obviously you want to get experience for your guys like throughout the season, but let's say we're playing some early team in the season that's not super important. Why not throw in a guy like Rivers Knight who wouldn't have played this year but's gonna get 2 games played? That's a really interesting part of this.
yeah. I think it's really interesting, especially now, end of game, you won't see Jace Rail. You'll see Rivers Knight and Jacob Weber suiting up, which I think will be good for their development. Antoine West last year probably would have been
Yeah.
good to have him in a few games at the end just to kind of get some blowouts, and kind of just unfortunate timing for him and a guy like Riley Burgess, where they probably didn't need to end up actually using those redshirt rules. And that's why I think there's probably going to be quite a few lawsuits that come from this with players who are trying to get more eligibility who didn't know about the rules. So we'll see how those hold up in court. Second one, or kind of fourth one here, Jamin Sondrup will still likely have 5 years beginning in 2028 when he finishes his mission trip. So they're going to have exceptions for religious reasons, for military service, anything like that. So he'll still be able in 2028 to start. He's not losing 2 years of eligibility just for that. So we're still going to be good there. And then the last one is the status of non-incoming freshmen and seniors on Purdue's roster. So think people like Omar Meyer, CJ Cox, Jakari Harris. It's not currently clear how this is going to apply to them. So if it did end up applying to those players, instead of 2 years left of eligibility like CJ and Jakari currently have right now, they would have 3 going into 26-27. So you almost start thinking about them like you did last year, where they have 3 left. But it also puts players like Jack Benner and Daniel Jacobson and Raleigh Burgess in the same class as them again in terms of their eligibility left, because that redshirt year that those 3 all took wouldn't count. And that's actually something Painter said on the Pete Sakes podcast, is that he interprets it that those 3, Benter, Jacobson, and Burgess, would all have just the 3 years left that CJ and Jakari would have as well, and not the 4 for their redshirt. So little confusing. No
Yeah,
one really
this might be
knows,
going a
I
little over
think.
my head.
Yeah. It's all really interesting right now, but the fact of the matter is there's a good chance that you look at Luke Girdle and Jacob Weber, we're probably going to see them play for 5 years compared to the
That's
4
just
that we saw
crazy.
for all the other classes, unless, God willing, they're good enough to go to the NBA. That's probably pretty good for Purdue in the long run. But if they're not, if they're maybe a player like Fletcher's caliber, who's very good, but probably not an NBA player right away, it might be beneficial for a team like Purdue, who's good at retaining talent and maybe doesn't have those NBA guys right away, to have that experience in their 5th year eventually to hopefully break through, and maybe that wins out in March eventually.
It really makes you think about those schools like, I mean, St. John's, where they're literally only targeting seniors. They're only going to be targeting seniors and fifth years at this point. I mean, I guess are we just going to start calling them fifth year seniors? I don't. We got to create a whole new class at this point, I
That
guess.
is true. We do need a name. Is it just going to be super senior? I kind of like super senior.
Super senior, I feel like has such a negative connotation. Maybe if I was one of them, I'd
Victory
be like, I
lap.
don't want to be. Yeah, victory lap's not. I
I
don't
like
like
the
that.
victory lap year, a VL.
That's that. All right, you know what? I'll go with that. That's what I'm gonna start calling it from now on. So
Alrighty, let's go. But that's pretty much all that has to do with those rules. Like I said, all of this is pretty much subject to change. I think they are going to vote on it soon. But again, with a lot of the players who entered the transfer portal at the end of this season, and people are kind of scratching their heads saying, I thought this guy was out of eligibility. They're just going to go to the courts and see if they can win and potentially play again. So,
yeah,
for all we know, even though it seems right now Charlie Baker, who's the president of the NCAA, is pretty confident about this not retroactively applying to 25, 26 players, maybe the portal's going to open again in a month, and
yeah. Let's
all of
start
those
suing.
players are going to be able to find new homes. Maybe that's why we still have a roster spot open. So
Braden.
who knows?
Yeah, it's something that I feel like we're gonna be talking about all summer. There's gonna be a new thing happening every month, and we'll be going into the season probably just then finding out what the final rules are. So we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll get back to our award shows, and we'll go over our inaugural awards for the 2025-2026 season.
Moving on to segment 2, we are going to be going into the Purdue awards for this past season. Purdue itself had the Golden Peats recently, which were the actual awards that they handed out. This is just going to be for Purdue basketball, but I like a lot of the categories that we've come up with. We're each going to have 3 awards, along with a couple or 3 nominees for each that we know the awards, but the other person does not know the winner and they don't know the nominees yet. So this is going to be pretty exciting. It'll be
It's gonna
new
be a
for us
surprise.
too. Yeah. So without further ado, Justin, I'll hand it off to you. What's your first award?
I'll take the honor of giving out we are calling it the best player of the year. Our award is going to be called the Mount to Maple Award, trying to honor Rick Mount back in the 60s, 70s, and then all the way up to Edie. Now, we can always change in the future if we get another great Ertl. You know, if Ertl's the next great, we can change it to Mount to Ertl. So, my nominees for this, I feel like the obvious one, no matter what, is Braden Smith. I mean, we'll see if he wins it. Might be a little bit hint with that. But my two for best player of the year, I have to go with Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn. I just feel like if you look at the season in total, those guys were, I think throughout the season, Trey Kaufman-Renn, you can just tell he cares the most. Even the regular season in a game, he is trying his ass off every single game. Then I feel like Oscar Clough, Big Ten tournament, March Madness, that dude really showed how important he was as a transfer and how good he was to have on this team. I don't know if you felt that there would be another person that you think could have been up for this award, or someone that could have showed the same level or that level.
Honestly, no. I'm glad you mentioned Oscar Clough because I wish we touched on this a little bit more last episode, but Oscar Clough, he did have a midseason swoon where he did not play as well as he did in November and December, but he really did pick it up in the tournament, and he should have been probably the Big Ten tournament MVP.
I'd agree.
Braden was phenomenal, and all of the assists that he got are the reason that he ended up being able to break the record. And against Michigan, he was our best player. But throughout that tournament, Clough was the difference maker, and I'm glad you gave him some recognition.
Of course. And unfortunately, I want to give his recognition there because Braden Smith's going to win this award. I'm going to have to give out Mount to Maple Award to Braden Smith. Congratulations. He can come on the podcast to accept it eventually. I just feel like, I mean, he is the best point guard, arguably of all time in college basketball. He broke the record this year. It's arguable to say he's one of the best Purdue players of all time. It's gotta be him. It's gotta be him every time. So I'll let you take off to their next award.
Yeah, no, for sure. Number 3 is going to be in the rafters, so I can't argue with that one. So this next award is called the Brothers Award. It is rewarded to the best backup option on the team. When you go out for a night at Purdue, brothers
See that
usually isn't
Harry's
your first
line.
option. So it's always great to have a good backup. So the nominees for this year, first we're going to start with Sha'Carri Harris. Usually came in that second rotation, replacing CJ Cox at the 2 spot. Did a great job. Really stepped up against Miami when CJ Cox got hurt in the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament. So Jakari Harris, had to give him a shout out there. Second nominee is Jack Benter, primarily backed up TKR. Really came in his redshirt freshman year and made a difference. Had a few really great highlight moments, especially in the Big Ten tournament against Michigan at the end of the game. So Jack Benter is our second nominee there. And then our third nominee, Omer Meyer, back up to Braden Smith. Really came in, I think, probably sacrificed to go to Purdue, at least for his freshman year, to learn from Braden Smith, and was incredible in the locker room, called Braden his big brother forever. So really great backup in multiple ways. But there can only be one winner. And for the inaugural Brothers Award, the winner is Jack Benter, backup
Wow. Okay.
to TKR. So my reasoning, let's go through some stats. So he was 7th on the team in minutes, second highest bench minutes on the team, 40% from 3. And my favorite is that every game, successful or not, took charges like a champion, put his body
I
on the
agree with that.
line, was always there, ultimate team player, Jack Benter. He had an advertisement with CBS about being an organ donor, and there's
I had no idea. That's
probably
awesome.
50 players that if I could give Jack Benter's heart to, I would in an instant, and they'd be 100 times better. So hopefully that continues for him, and we can get that spirit in a few other guys. So some key moments I want to go over for Benner, just that I kind of mentioned with the Michigan game, but just there's a few other ones. So the first 2 games of the season, talk about being a good backup. He started in place of TKR against
Yeah.
Oakland and
Forgot about
Evansville.
that.
Yeah, and he scored 11 points in each game, so double digits. Obviously, they're low major competition, but I thought he did a great job stepping in. And Purdue, especially against Oakland, was a little shaky. And if we would have lost one of those games, you're probably not a 2 seed in the tournament. So he
Yeah.
stepped up, he did his job. And as a freshman, his first 2 games ever at Purdue, can't praise him enough. And then the
Yeah.
big one, yeah, sorry, you want to?
Well, I'm just thinking we're so lucky to have such good backups. I think any of those 3 that you named could have won its award, and it would have been fair. Like, I think Omer came in, like you said, did a great job as our backup. He had some games that I feel like he honestly carried us to the victory. Jakari Harris really turned it on towards the end of the season, was huge. I'm really excited for him this upcoming year. And then, obviously, Benter, the award winner. I totally see it. I mean, I feel like getting into conference play, I feel like most people were thinking, all right, this guy is, and maybe he didn't have as good of a season as we wanted him to because of how great he was at the beginning of the season. I think we were expecting like, oh my God, this guy just came out of nowhere. He's going to be he might be our 5th or 6th best player. And he ended up being that good. So I'm excited for all of those guys next year.
Yeah, no, better. And then in the Big Ten tournament, like I mentioned earlier against Michigan, in the waning seconds of that game, when it looked like Michigan, I think they cut it to 5, and then they made a few runs. I know Lendenborg hit a 3 towards the end of the game to cut it to around 8 or 7. Benter went 4 for 4 on free throws late in that game to really quash any chance of a Michigan comeback. And from a freshman who shot 60% from 3, or from I wish, who shot 60% from the free throw line all season, to be able to go 4 for 4 in the biggest moments, had to give it to Benter, and he is the Brothers Award winner.
Hey, if he can shoot 60% from 3 next season, he'll win. We'll give him the Mount Mabel next year. So.
He might win National Player of the Year. We might have to rename the first award to the Benner Award and then go from there.
Yeah. All right, so for our next award, for our 3rd inaugural award, I'm going to go with the Neil Armstrong Giant Leap Award. Got to get some Purdue alumni in there, and probably our most famous one. I feel like there's a lot of great choices for this. I mean, there's 2 guys I feel like that really stood out, and my 3rd choice is a very forward-looking one, but I'm going to go with CJ Cox as my first choice for this. I feel like he just, even though you would argue he's probably our 4th or 5th best starter, he really did become a guy you could trust every game. Like, there were times where he would get taken out. He's one of the first guys that gets taken out in the game, and I did not want him to come out of the game. I'm like, he needs to stay in for as long as possible. There was games where, you could argue he needed the ball in his hands way more than it did. So, really excited for him next year. Hopefully, he takes another giant leap. The second guy is Jakari Harris. I feel like he really came along this season. I kind of talked about it in our last section, but he really came along as the season on. I mean, if you showed me the Arizona game as the first game of Jakari Harris, I would think he is one of the best players on the team. He showed out in that game, even though it was in a loss. I'm really excited for where he's going to look up next year. Now, my non-conventional choice for this is PJ Thompson, the assistant coach on Purdue, because I feel like there was really a lot of stuff as the season went on about how important he was to the team. I mean, he's kind of our coach in waiting at this point. I think a lot of people would say to Matt Painter. And I feel like you could see they were showing on Instagram clips of him in the huddles talking to the team. He's giving halftime speeches. I'm really excited for where he's going to go with the offense and the defense in the future, or just when he can take over. I have no doubt in my head he can take over from Matt Painter, and that's something I could not have said a year ago. So I feel like he deserves to be nominated for this at least. But my winner for this is going to end up being CJ Cox. I just feel like in my head, he really became another guy on this team that I really do trust to be a guy next year. I trust him to lead this team. I trust him to honestly be the vet, not even just the vet presence, a leader, and probably the leading scorer on the team. I think we could win if he's that guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'd 100% agree with CJ Cox as the pick here. I love the PJ Thompson poll. That one's awesome. But with CJ, he won us that Northwestern game. I think someone on X afterwards called him Social Security because he was saving the seniors, which I loved. And like,
That's great.
I think CJ, like you said, is going to be our leading scorer next year. I think he's going to be our best player. Jakari did a great job filling in for him when he went out against Miami, but you could tell that the team was missing him a little bit, and it felt like even again against Texas and early against Arizona, when he got to that mid-range towards the end of the season, I felt like it was almost automatic. And then, like you mentioned, from three, he was fantastic as well. So can't argue with that pick. I think CJ is a great one. He's going to be great next year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great options for it. So I think we went with the right guy for that. But next year's gonna be an interesting one too. I mean, anybody's up for it next year.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, going into the next award, it's going to be the Hindsight All-American. So this is given to the player who entered the portal from the previous season, whose role on their new team was basically the same as it would have been at Purdue, and maybe there's a little bit of regret there. Want to preface this by saying no hate to any of these guys, but
Of course.
you know, maybe it could have worked out better. So the nominees, first one, Cam Heide at Texas, now at South Carolina, transferred at the end of the 25 season. Brutal right after hitting that game-tying shot against Houston. You think at that point that guy's going to have a big role at Purdue for a while, but as it turned out, didn't end up that way, and eventually met Purdue again and became
became a heel, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, people were
Oh, yeah.
mad at him that game.
Yeah, I am people. So I'm sorry, Cam, but he is a nominee for this award. Second nominee, and I only did two, is Miles Colvin. At Wake Forest last year, now at Cincinnati, you can kind of see a theme going on there with the guys who transferred away, and now they're already on a new school. Colvin, I think everyone knew he was going to transfer at the end of the year last year, and I'm glad he did because I don't think his role could have been as large as maybe Heidi's was or could have been at Purdue. Colvin, had a great season at Wake Forest. I think he was one of their top three leading scorers. He had a great game and a game winner in the same tournament that Purdue was at. So it was great that he was still able to be kind of connected to the team this year, similar to Heide, but maybe in a better way because we didn't actually have to play Colvin in an important game. So with all that being said, and I've probably already revealed it a little bit, the winner of the Hindsight All-American Award is Cam Heide.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the right
reason. Yeah, so the reason for this, and I'll start with why I think it was smart that he did transfer. So he started 29 games this past year at Texas compared to just 8 in 24 and 25 at Purdue. So he got the starting role he wanted. So no disrespect there. Totally understand it. But you look at his actual numbers. He only averaged 3 more minutes per game, 22 and a half compared to about 19 and a half at Purdue. He only attempted one more shot per game in those extended 3 minutes. He went from 3 to 4. He had 36 more shots overall in one less game, which is pretty substantial. So he did get more opportunities in that way. But his scoring average only went up by 1.2 from about 4.7 to 5.9. If he would have stayed at Purdue, I think that there's, looking back at a previous award winner, he could have slid into that Benner role, I feel, pretty
Yeah.
easily. Been the most consistent sixth man on the team. Very unique player type at 6'7", 6'8" range. Extremely athletic, who I think would have really benefited Purdue this year against some of the matchups like Arizona or like a Michigan, where we needed guys to put on people like Yaxel or Koa Pete, and we really just didn't have it. So I thought Cam Heide really could have excelled at Purdue this year and would have been going into a senior year where he would have been the only senior, and that starting 4 spot might have just been his. So
Yeah.
listen, I totally get it. Starting opportunities are hard to come by. Texas offered that opportunity while Purdue probably didn't, and Texas is still a high-level SEC program. So the NIL, I'm sure it's great. And when
That's
you
the hard
have
part with this.
yeah, exactly. And when you have especially Cam Heide redshirted, so his eligibility ends next year no matter what, regardless if this 5-5 thing goes into effect. So I understand totally. Got to max that while you can. Not sure what his career looks like after college. So when you can get the NIL money, that's life changing. So respect to him and for going to Texas. But I feel
Yeah, and
like,
you mentioned it
yeah,
too. Like, he probably starts some games over Lawyer for us. Like, that's the
yeah,
crazy part. Like, I don't think that's insane to say that if he stays, he's definitely the sixth man. He's without a doubt the sixth man. And I don't think there's I mean, Matt Painter loves a guy like that who's basically a guard but tall enough to be a forward, where he could
yeah,
guard the axle, guard the guy from in the three when we need size a lot of time. That's kind of something we struggled with this year for sure. When we couldn't trust Jacobson or some other guys off the bench. So I think, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, you obviously, I think what's so great about this program is that guys leave like that, like Colvin and Heidi, and it doesn't seem like they ever have anything bad to say. That's like such a great
hmm
thing about Purdue. They like, even Heidi claims that he's a boiler for life, and like, a little bit questionable because you left, but it's clear that they all really have a great team environment, and I think it's, even though we make jokes of this award, I think it's a great thing to have for the team, for even a guy to leave to still appreciate the time he had here.
yeah, no, 100%. They should have transferred back. It would have been cool.
Honestly, I would take Heidi. I can't argue that. I would take Heidi for the last spot if he asked to, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But moving on to the next award, I'll go to my last award. This one's, I think, pretty creative, so we'll get out there with it. It's the Orville Redenbacher Get Your Popcorn Award. Now, speaking of Cam Heidi, I think he would have been the person to win this a year ago. He's kind of what had in my thought, where like he has that highlight reel dunk every other game or something in really important times. So it's a little bit harder with this year because I feel like we had a team that wasn't very flashy. Honestly, we worked really good as a unit. We had a lot of guys who passed the ball, got some movement and stuff, but there were 3 guys I thought stood out the most. My nominee order is Fletcher Lawyer. I feel like he's the type of guy where you'll hear Bill Simmons or somebody say this a lot of time, where to say when Steph Curry was at his peak, it's like Steph Curry's hitting threes. You gotta turn the game on. If Fletcher Lawyer comes out and hits that first 3 and he hits another one after that, I'm sat. I'm there. I'm there for the game. You tell people Fletcher Lawyer is on fire right now. That is the exact quintessential person I want for my getting my popcorn. Now, Omer Mayer is my second nominee for this. And really, this one comes from the fact that I just feel like he's a very quintessential college guard. He's the kind of guy you want when you think of like scoring. Even though he's not the biggest dude, he's not the fastest dude. He can get the ball into the hoop when he needs to get in there. He can have 10 points straight if we need him to. I think it's a really good skill to have, and that's something where you're watching the game, you're like, okay, Omer, you gotta take over, man. Let's get this. Come on. And my last nominee for this is going to be Braden Smith. Now, I would never classify Braden as the flashiest player. He's very much a drive the ball, pass it out, get the open 3. But when he's at a game and there's 10 minutes left and he has 8 assists, I'm watching every single pass that he has for that game because I need him to get those assists so he can break the record. There's a huge thing this season. You were watching a game, maybe against Penn State, we're up 20. But Braden's got 10 assists and there's 10 minutes left. How many can he get before this game's over? And I thought that's a huge popcorn thing there. Do you have any other players you thought should have been up for this award?
Not that I can think of off the top
It's
of my
hard,
head,
yeah.
but I will say, for the Fletcher one, he hits that first three, you get everyone in the room, and then next thing you know, Painter has him on the bench for the next 10 minutes, and we
Yeah.
fall behind by 15. So
Maybe it's
Painter's
a Painter
working
issue.
against you there.
Painter doesn't bring popcorn to the game, so he's a little against this. But but saying all that, I feel like my winner, because you even acknowledged right there, is gotta be Fletcher. I mean, maybe he was held back a little bit because of the way that we rotate our teams. Sometimes we didn't always get him as many shots as he needed, but I feel like if he had that green light to an extent, and when he did have that green light, it was everything you want to see in a game. It was, I need to watch this game. I need to turn the TV on. Fletcher Loyer's hitting threes. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Fletcher, I immediately think to the Oregon game where
Yes.
we're going to lose that game at Mackey. And I'm pretty sure we were coming off a few losses at that point too. And if we
Yeah.
lose that game, things are not looking good for the season. That's peak people getting upset at the Running Point podcast and people saying the team is distracted and all of that jazz surrounding us around midseason. So if Fletcher doesn't pull that out towards the end there with, I think he hit a late 3-pointer, which ended up sealing the win. That would have been a really embarrassing loss that really would have affected us later. So I'm definitely glad that I stayed around and grabbed some popcorn for watching Fletcher for that one. But I do also want to say that Orville Redenbacher, a proud Valparaiso, Indiana native, there's a lot
I would
of
love
rumors.
for people to do some research on this.
There are a lot of rumors that he's from Brazil. Brazil's a country in South America. So he is not from Brazil, Indiana. He's a Valparaiso, whatever we're called, Viking.
Hey man, you don't gotta lie on the podcast, man. It's okay. You don't gotta lie on me.
let me spread false information. All right. So for our last award, this one I'm pretty excited for. It is the Not Washed Boiler. And this is given to the most notable Purdue basketball alum from the previous year. So for my first nominee, actually, and I mentioned this earlier, I was glad you mentioned him. PJ Thompson is one of my nominees. Wow. I feel like it might be a little bit of a cop-out since he's still technically on the team, but he is still a former player. But like you mentioned, always active in the huddle. His offense ended up being literally the best in college basketball history per KenPom. Promoted to associate head coach at the end of the season, so it's pretty clear that he's going to be the head coach in waiting. Now, whether that means he's going to stay at Purdue until Painter leaves, or he's going to take more of a path where he goes and coaches maybe at a lower major level for a little bit and then comes back to Purdue for a year before Painter decides to retire, like Painter did with Gene Katie. Maybe that's how it goes. But PJ Thompson has done a great job since he was a grad assistant and now an actual assistant coach and associate head coach. So shout out to him.
Yeah,
Second
might need
nominee,
to get PJ Thompson on the podcast soon. I mean, two nominations already for him. Yeah,
we got to run by what his paint crew would be.
Ooh,
I've heard. I will say I've heard one I liked. It's PJ Party, and everyone just shows up in pajamas to the game. Maybe that'd be a little weird.
I need him to be the head coach. I need him to be the head coach. I already love that too much. In the future,
PJ Party. Second one, we're going to go with Robbie Hummel. Speaking of Valparaiso, Indiana.
Classic.
NBC Sports and Peacock basketball coverage, Big Ten Network, is really having a great broadcasting career after his playing career, which especially for a guy like Robbie Hummel, who played in the NBA, who played overseas, who played 3v3 basketball for a little bit, has always been a great player, was a great player at Purdue who just got the raw end of the stick with injuries and bad timing at least twice by tearing his ACL late in one season and then at a practice early on in the next season, he got hurt as well. So a guy who really toughed it out while he was at Purdue and probably had a few opportunities taken away from him just by bad timing with injuries. So the fact that he's doing great now, had to give him a quick nomination. And then the third nominee. Oh, yeah, 100%. And then our third nominee is going to be Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey was traded from the Detroit Pistons to the Chicago Bulls for a little bit at the end of the season. So had to give Jaden Ivey. He was pretty notable this past year. So
it's interesting because you argue that is a washed boiler alumni award? Is that maybe another category at this point?
Hey, man, being washed isn't going to matter on Judgment Day, so we'll see how that goes. But the winner of this award is going to be Robbie Hummel. Just wanted to give it to him just because branching out of college basketball coverage, especially on Peacock with the NBA, I personally love NBC's presentation of everything, but I think what they've done for the NBA this season after they got the rights to broadcast a few of the games back has been fantastic, and I think their crew is a part of that. And I don't watch a ton of regular season NBA
It's hard to.
basketball,
It's
I
hard.
will admit, but I did tune in a few times to some when they would do the intro for like the Sunday night basketball and stuff like that. And I love their presentation there. And I'm not sure if Robbie was on all those games, but I saw a few clips on X where he was, kind of talking about different subjects, and just to kind of see him alongside like Carmelo Anthony and all of those other broadcasters that they have there. I thought it was pretty cool to see a Purdue guy there. So had to give it to him. And yeah.
I think it's a great choice. I mean, it's one of those guys where if you turn on a game and Robbie Hummel is broadcasting it just makes you feel good. It's just a great feeling.
Oh
You're just
yeah,
like, oh, that's my guy.
100%.
I need him and a Drew Brees broadcast eventually. I don't know they should do some random
Ooh.
sport together and just go broadcast together because I think both of those that would just warm my heart.
Yeah, I want to see like a spring game for Drew and then the alumni game for Robbie, and they can just do an all Purdue broadcast. They don't got to worry about being biased or anything. It's perfect.
Yeah, just they could just go on a spree of naming as many Purdue greats as they can. I would listen to it.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I think that wraps up our awards. We'll take a quick break here and then we'll get back to going over some surprises or anything else that jumped out to us.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So for our last segment here, we just kind of want to look back and see we have all of these awards for this season. Who were some players maybe in Purdue's history that would have won these if we were doing these for past seasons? So I think the most interesting one maybe to start with would be the Mountain Maple Award for the best player. Who do you think would have won that maybe the last 6 years or so?
Yeah, let's just say like COVID season on. Maybe that's not an easy way of doing it. It's interesting because it's been such a like. I feel like that whole we'll have another podcast where we go into eras, but this is probably a distinct era. I feel like, and so if we were to start at the beginning, it's arguably Travion or Ivy. I'd say for that season, it's really hard. Ivy's so young that it's hard to give him that. I feel like Travion really was like probably the leader of that team. I know in that North Texas game, I think he was the only one that seemed to care. As for how I remember that game, I think everyone else gave up at that point. But going to that next year, I would say Ivy is you got. I mean, fifth or sixth pick in the draft. I mean, one of our best lottery picks of. I mean, one of the highest we've had in a long time. So he's got to be there. And then you pretty much have this run of Edey, Braden, and arguably maybe you could throw TKR at the same level as Braden, but I mean Braden was the best player in the country last year. It's hard to argue TKR over him. But those are the interesting ones. I mean, is there anybody else you can think of that would have had it or was maybe like right next to having that best player?
I mean, if we go back, maybe not the year before we started, so not 2019, 2020, but 2018, 2019, Carson Edwards wins that pretty easily. I think the year before that is maybe interesting. So you have 2017, 2018, you have Carson Edwards, Isaac Haas, Vincent Edwards. That might be an interesting one to see. I don't necessarily remember all too well who was the
No,
best player
that's
on
when we
that
have to
team.
do
I'd
some
have to
research
look.
on.
Yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, the award's called Mount to Maple, and Maple is Zach Edey. So when the award is named after a guy who was on 4 of those teams and was the best player in the country for 2 of them, then yeah, you can't
He's
really
that guy.
argue that. Yeah. One player that came to mind that definitely wouldn't be in the running for that award, but might be in the running for a couple other awards is Mason Gillis. So the first one I thought of is for that 23-24 season when we made the Final Four in the national championship. I would say he was 100% the Brothers Award winner for best
Yeah,
backup
without a doubt.
on that. Yeah. He came off the bench. He was Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year that year, which almost automatically makes you have to win that for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Gillis was incredible that year. And the lineups where he'd come in for TKR, and he would close games sometimes as well. Those were all. He was always good to destroy Michigan State for at least one game a season. So Gillis had to have won that. But I hate to do this, and maybe it doesn't apply, maybe it does. Does he win the hindsight All-American for 24-25?
It's hard because, I mean, I remember when it happened, because we weren't expecting to be good that year. We all,
Yeah.
when that happened, we were like, oh man, go be it, dude. Go have fun, dude. Like, go be that guy. But we kind of were good that year. Like, if he had stayed, the hindsight, I mean,
Is he the difference between beating Houston and not beating Houston? I feel like he is.
It's hard to say that he wouldn't. I mean, he's one of the most experienced players. I mean, I know Cam Heidi hits the shot that we all wanted to be the game winner, but like Gillis could do that. I mean, he's the type of guy who was like known for hitting threes, known to be like a hard player, like plays good defense. That was a big thing we had wrong with that team. The defense was like awful in some games. It's hard to say. I mean, I think he's a great guy to bring up for this award for sure.
Yeah. And at the beginning of that 23-24 season, I think the story goes like Painter met with Gillis and Ethan Morton and obviously Zach Edey, the actual seniors without COVID years, which I guess they all could have come back. Edey obviously wasn't going to, but Morton and Gillis could have. And I think they decided at the beginning of that season they weren't going to. They all participated in senior night, so that made sense. So I think it was also a like goal of Gillis. I feel like I heard that somewhere to play for Duke, or like that was like his childhood team or something like that. So good for him. Like you mentioned, they made the Final Four, so they made it further than us. And he did have a role on that team. He didn't play big minutes, but I'm sure he was maybe one day Cooper Flagg is going to be saying, you know, oh, I remember Mason Gillis from my Duke days. Yeah, I don't know. So
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it probably ended up just in terms of his career being a good capping point. He already had 2 degrees from Purdue, so don't think he needed to get his PhD or whatever.
It's great for him.
So,
I'm happy for him as much as I wish he could have experienced that team. We didn't know how good it would be. It's hard for him to do that. I'm happy that he was able to do that. Yeah. The only other award that I think is probably interesting to touch on for past winners would probably be the Get Your Popcorn Award. And that's because, I mean, we had a span there where we had Carson Edwards have probably one of the greatest March Madness tournaments of all time. I think people who aren't even Purdue fans would admit that he had one of the greatest runs. Amazing player. He's probably the quintessential guy that I want on Purdue to win this award every year. Like if we could have a run like that, I think I'd be set every year. And the only other one I could think of really that's like one of our main dudes, like best players, probably Jaden Ivey. I mean, I think there's recently been, since some things have happened with him, there's been a lot of clips floating around of him in college, and he's admitted he's not that player anymore. He's had so many injuries, which is, leading to some things for him. But you see some of those clips, it's like, oh my God, we had that guy on our team. That guy was just dunking like that as a 19 or 20-year-old. It's guys, I'm hoping that in this next class, and we'll talk about this more in some future episodes, guys who could live up to some of these awards maybe. But I'm hoping we have another Ivy in the future. It'd be awesome to see a guy like that.
No, 100%. So I was at the Purdue-Virginia game, Elite Eight, where Carson Edwards, his final Purdue game, he had 40+ that game. Incredible to watch in person, and I wish I remembered it more, but he was fantastic. But I have to agree with you. I think Jaden Ivey, when you look back at his highlights and just like some of the dunks he had, especially even like his freshman year, we were a very fast, spread it out team that year, run up and down the court. It was really fun to watch, and there has not been an athlete like him in a Purdue uniform since. I mean, obviously he went top 5 in the draft, so that makes sense, but I wish desperately that he would have stayed his junior year. That would have been a national championship for sure. If he would have stayed his junior year and we would have had Ivy, who was already good enough to be a top 5 pick in the draft, and Zach Edey in his National Player of the Year, we're not losing to FDU. I will say that.
That's an all-time Purdue lineup. I mean, you're taking one of Zach Edey's best years, Braden Smith, who's pretty young, but still Braden Smith, and throwing Ivy in there. I mean, that's an all-time lineup already. I would. It sucks, man. I mean, that's the hindsight.
Ivy's better than David Jenkins?
I don't know. I heard David Jenkins won a sorority tournament.
What award does he win?
Oof. Probably washed while playing in a Purdue uniform.
That's valid.
We'll wrap it up there with our that's all our awards for this year. I mean, I think we'll keep touching on these as we go throughout the year, maybe projections, and hopefully gain some traction with like the names of these. I mean, I feel like these are pretty creative, so we'll hope that we can keep going with these in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. You can find the podcast on YouTube and Spotify, as well as TikTok and Instagram for short clips. So thank you guys for watching, and have a great rest of your day.
Yep. See ya.